Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha.
When they invite kids to come up front and put dollar bills down the chest.
Give me $1 and I'll give you a hug.
Specific body parts and how they are depicted or how they are displayed.
Every time we are visible, it makes it safer for other people like us.
Last Monday, the Rolla City Council meeting was packed. There were so many people, in fact, that once the council chambers were full, the overflow room and the lobby couldn't hold everyone who wanted to be there. Even the fire chief was there to enforce compliance with fire codes, and the meeting itself lasted for over 5 hours. Joining me to talk about what brought so many folks to Rolla City Hall last week, we have Jonathan Ahl, STLPR's Rolla correspondent. Jonathan, it's great to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me, Elaine. I appreciate it.
So what were people there at City Hall to speak about in Rolla?
Well, that kind of depends on your perspective. What was actually in front of the council was adopting an ordinance about obscenity. But the reason for that ordinance and why it came before the council was because of an event that happened at the city's Pride Festival in June. Now, that Pride Festival happened in downtown Rolla, and more than 400 people came, and a lot of it was people going to food trucks and information booths and arts and crafts and that kind of thing, all while supporting the local LGBTQ population. But it also included a drag show where 4 performers performed in the band shell downtown, which is just adjacent to the festival area. And there were some people who took objection to what went on at that drag show. There were a few local pastors who had come to the event specifically to try to take pictures and take videos of it and then complain about what happened at these drag shows to the Rolla City Council. Mm-hmm. And so these pastors said, this can't go on. Something needs to be done about this. They brought the videos and the photos to the Rolla City Council, and the council decided that they were going to start talking about adopting an obscenity ordinance.
Now, before that, you said that the pastors had gone there specifically to sort of document what was going on. Had there been some conversation in Rolla about Pride events, and that one there in particular, as being objectionable, especially given sort of everything that's been going on in Missouri and elsewhere?
I would say that any conversation in Rolla was not Rolla-specific, but more a reflection of the kinds of conversations that you were talking about that are going on statewide and nationally. The Pride Festival has happened every year. As a matter of fact, the approval of the permit for the group to hold the Pride Festival was rather routine with no objections. So it did come a little bit out of nowhere that there was that level of scrutiny and attention paid to it. It's not like it was something that was brewing ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. Now, in the introduction, I talked about how many people were there. How many people are we talking about, Jonathan?
I would say that there was about 200 or so, which, it may not sound like an awful lot of people, but it was a significant amount. That was, for a Rolla City Council meeting for sure.
Mm-hmm. And are there other meetings that have happened, recently, sort of within memory, that have generated this degree of public interest?
No. There have definitely been some controversial topics in front of the Rolla City Council the last 5 years that I can speak of, on topics of a shelter for people who are experiencing homelessness, to regulating where first medical marijuana dispensaries and then recreational marijuana dispensaries. So there have been some controversial issues, but I don't think any of them were even half as big of a turnout as we had this past Monday.
Mm-hmm. And you were talking about the June Pride Fest, the component of that event that brought about this obscenity ordinance. Insofar as what people were saying, either in favor or against, what were the things that were being presented?
Well, I think that it's very interesting because there's a lot of it depends on perspective, and a lot of it depends on exactly what people saw or maybe even wanted to see when they saw either the performance in person or when they saw the videos after the fact. I'd like to maybe we can play a little bit of one of the exchanges that happened during the Rolla City Council meeting, which I think is very telling. First, you're going to hear from Mayor Lou Magditz, then 4th Ward Alderman Robert Kessinger, and then 2nd Ward Alderwoman Megan Johnson.
Is what's troubling us the principle of a drag show, or if a drag show crosses the line? What is it that we want to tell?
For me, if a man wants to dress like a woman and sing like Dolly Parton, that'd be fine. I have that's not a problem. But when they invite kids to come up front and put dollar bills down the chest, then I have a problem with it.
When they encourage that behavior, I think that becomes something that, where there needs to be some prevention, because that can lead to other things.
Yes.
Whenever you have children giving monetary gain for, especially the story that we heard about, give me $1 and I'll give you a hug. Well, that is telling that child that if you give a monetary, if you give money to if someone gives you money, then, it's related to physical touch. And so what is next after that?
So there's a lot to unpack there, and so let's go through it real quickly. First of all, Robert Kessinger and what he said about, his perception of what an acceptable drag show is a man dressing like Dolly Parton and singing. Mm-hmm. I think that shows a certain bias and perspective of what a drag show is. And then there was a discussion about the thing that they found most objectionable was that apparently there were, in a couple of the performances, there were opportunities for members of the crowd to put a dollar bill into the costumes of the performers. And at least one child did seem to be participating in that, and that child was with their parent, so that is another layer of this. But that seems to be the thing that the council was focused on. So they are hoping to look at an obscenity ordinance to hopefully stop what they perceive to be the problem here. One more clip from the Rolla City Council here. Again, we're going to hear Alderwoman Megan Johnson and then Mayor Lou Magditz. And I think what you're going to hear is a little more discussion of what the perceived problem is, and then maybe a little bit on the pragmatism involved here that you might not be hearing in other places that are debating this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
In my eyes, protecting children isn't a complex issue. I think that it's actually very common sense. I think that it's something that we should all very much care about. And I do think we need to establish something like the Chesterfield Ordinance.
I agree with you, Megan, to the point where common sense should say this. But we live in a country that has some set of laws that apply to things that we may not like. So I think the challenge is going to be to come to something that is not only fair, but it is enforceable, key word, and not only enforceable by Rolla Police Department, but on then through the justice system. So that's going to be the trick. Anything else is window dressing. So it is a bit complex.
So there you hear Mayor Magditz talking about the complexities of this. There's also a reference to the Chesterfield Ordinance, and I want to explain that really quick. The city of Chesterfield passed an obscenity ordinance in 2006, and across the state of Missouri, it's viewed as the gold standard for obscenity ordinances because it takes a definition that has been tried in court, that has stood up to legal challenges, and that is considered to be the gold standard in Missouri. Now, that's why the Rolla City Council is looking at it. But, and something that was pointed out at this meeting at least a couple of times was nothing that happened at that drag show was in any violation of the Chesterfield Ordinance. And because the Chesterfield Ordinance very specifically lays out what obscenity is. I mean, it talks about specific body parts and how they are depicted or how they are displayed. It is very, very graphic and very, very detailed. And none of that happened at the drag show. So And Mayor Magdet said at the end that anything short of that is window dressing, and I think that's maybe at the heart of all of this, which is the council wants to do something to make it look like they're doing something, but maybe they're running up against the idea that there may not be anything that they can really do legally.
Right. So, given that the ordinance in Chesterfield has been around, since 2006, it doesn't seem likely that those who organized the drag show were doing so in a way to avoid scrutiny in some way. On the point of children giving money to performers, did LGBTQ plus Rolla have any response to that specific concern?
Well, maybe not. Yes and no. I think that Shasta Johnson, who is the president of the organization, gave probably the most impassioned and direct address to the council on that. And I think Shasta made a lot of points that encapsulated what the dozens of people who also addressed the council who were in support of the LGBTQ communities expressed as well. And maybe we can hear from Shasta.
It was important to have drag queens at our Pride event, as their presence serves as a reminder that everyone deserves to be seen, heard, and celebrated. It matters that we are visible. People in Rolla, people like me, deserve to be seen. Every time we are visible, it makes it safer for other people like us. It says, here is a place where you will be accepted the way you are. Here is a spot where you feel welcome. Here is your community. We all deserve our version of that. We all deserve to feel joy and to celebrate what we have together. Any rational person can agree that pornographic and obscene materials should not be allowed in public. What took place during our drag show was neither of these things. Let us be frank, the conversation here today is a thinly veiled attempt at restricting drag and classifying this inspiring art form as vile and pornographic.
So I think what you hear there is the LGBTQ community definitely feels that this has nothing to do with obscenity, this has nothing to do with allegedly protecting children, and this has everything to do to try to marginalize the community that already feels marginalized.
Mm-hmm. So insofar as the ordinance is concerned, when will a decision be made about it?
The Rolla City Council does not move quickly, typically. Actually, Mayor Magditz even said that that the council will still be talking about this 6 months from now. So I don't think it's anything that's going to happen very quickly. It is on the agenda for the next meeting next Monday night. It will probably be discussed a lot. I don't know that it's something that would be resolved very quickly, though. Mm-hmm.
And for the number of votes that would be required on the city council, how many would be needed to pass the ordinance?
I think that the ordinance will pass unanimously, or with one or two dissents at all. I mean, this council is very conservative. No one on the council spoke against the idea of the ordinance. All of the council discussion was geared towards trying to find a way to pass something. I don't think that there's anybody on that council that is going to vote against it. Mm-hmm. Perhaps they may look to be more pragmatic and try to, focus on something that can stand up to legal challenge, while other council members are asking, well, can we take this opportunity to try to expand the legal definition? But so I think the council is very much looking for a way to try to stop drag shows, or at least some part of them in the future. But again, it's a town divided. There are definitely a lot of people who are trying to stand up for the rights of the LGBTQ community.
Mm-hmm. And in the last 30 seconds or so, is there anything that has surprised you about this debate over the proposal?
At the last meeting, two women that I know, who are both band moms, both their kids are in the high school band, they both showed up. One had a shirt on with a lot of religious descriptions on it. The other one had a pride shirt on. They saw each other, they hugged, they talked about their kids, and then they both went into the council meeting to say their piece, which could not be more diametrically opposed. And I think that's a good sign of exactly where Rolla is on this, and some of the things that we're going to see come to the head as this issue is debated in the coming months.
I appreciate that very in real life sort of description that you've shared. Jonathan Ahl is STLPR's Rolla correspondent. Jonathan, thanks so much for talking with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Before we end today's show, I'd like to hear your thoughts. St. Louis is getting serious about reparations, and the City Commission dedicated to the process of determining what reparations should be will hold its fourth public meeting this Wednesday evening. Are there specific incidents and policies that have harmed Black St. Louis residents that you think St. Louis needs to be talking about? How about reparations themselves? What form should they take? We welcome your thoughts, questions, or comments. Leave us a voicemail at 314-516-6397. That's 314-516-NEWS. Or you can send us a tweet at STL on air or email us at talk@stlpr.org.
This episode was produced by Elaine Shaw
and Emily Woodbury. Our audio engineer is Aaron Dorr. This podcast was mixed and edited by Aaron.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
St. Louis on the Air proudly supports local artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.